Good evening, everyone. This is Suzanne Knaber-Nicole from Police Science Doctor. As usual, I come into your living room or wherever you're watching this onto your screen on a Tuesday evening to tell you about the police science snippets I've released today. So the police science snippets are 3 pieces of actionable research, just a tiny golden nugget extracted from a research article somewhere that I think is interesting and actionable enough for you to put to use straight away. Something that you can apply, something you can think about, or something that you can do right away. I send these out to people on my email list. So I've got a subscriber list, the Police Science Doctor community, and I would encourage you all, if you're interested in the kind of content that you hear about here on the Police Science Snippets, that you should subscribe to my email. You will get things like this. You will get announcements and links to other videos and anything that's relevant emailed to you as and when it comes up. But the police science snippets will be coming every Tuesday, and they have now been doing so for the last 10 weeks. So today is police science snippet 10. Maybe that counts as a little bit of an anniversary. I'm not sure. But if you subscribe to the email list, you'll be the first to know about these kind of things. You will also get a password, an access password that you get when you subscribe, when you confirm your email. That will give you access to the read page on the policesciencedoctor.com website. What you find on the read page is the transcript for every single video that's in the video gallery. You can download those as a PDF, and you can keep them. You can keep a library if you want. The transcripts have obviously everything that is being said in the video. They also have the timestamps, references, and key learning points. So it's a really good revision document if there's something you learned or wanted to learn from one of the videos. Some people like hearing it in a video. Some people like reading afterwards, or maybe you just want to keep a record of it so you can quickly look something up. You also get the police science snippets as a PDF. You can download all 10 of them if you have access to the read page. So again, you only get that if you're an email subscriber. If you don't like what I email you, there's absolutely no problem. You can just unsubscribe anytime. So I wanted to go through these snippets with you, but before I do that, I've got another announcement. So this Thursday evening, it's sort of becoming a bit of a regular thing. I interviewed someone last Thursday, and I'm not actually setting out to interview someone every Thursday, but somehow good opportunities are presenting themselves and I don't want to miss them. I come across people that I think would provide something of real value to you, that can talk about something that I think you might be really interested in. So last week we had Detective Chief Inspector Ryan Brummer, who talked about mental health and working on yourself to become a better cop and a better person, how to get out of a psychological and mental low that he found himself in. And it was a metamorphosis, and he actually came out of the situation much better than he went in. I thought that was really relevant, and there were lots of positive reactions to that video. So thank you for commenting. Thank you for sending messages on the various posts that were on social media about that. So the person I've invited to speak to me live this Thursday is Professor Jane Monckton-Smith. So let me just show you this. So this is basically the thumbnail of our talk this Thursday. In 2 days from now, 7 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, so that's London. If you're in New York, it's 2 p.m. If you're in Australia, it's going to be very early on Friday morning. If you can't catch us live, so the advantage to catching us live is you can basically post a question, and maybe I can ask Jane about it. Maybe she can answer it for you. If you can't catch us live, you can watch the video afterwards as well. But she's basically going to talk about coercive control and domestic homicide. And very soon, she's also going to be releasing this here book, In Control, Dangerous Relationships and How They End in Murder. So this really intrigued me when I saw it. I got in touch with her, and that's why she's coming on, because she's quite interested in talking to me about her research. And she describes 8 phases in how it actually gets to domestic murder. And one of the advantages of knowing about these phases is that for victims, they might be able to recognize themselves in a situation like that. They might be able to, once they know more about the situation and about what she's talking about, the research that she's pulled together here, that perhaps some victims might notice a change. They might notice that, hang on, it used to be one way, now it's another way. There could be a warning sign. The same for offenders. I mean, people who kill their partners, that's obviously a very, very wrong thing to do. I mean, it's obvious. I don't even need to state that, really. But they don't set out to do that when they get together with the person, when they marry the person. There is a developmental process that they go through. And maybe some offenders can recognize themselves in one of those stages, or obviously they wouldn't see themselves as offenders. They haven't killed their partner yet in the situation I'm talking about, but perhaps it can maybe prevent to some extent if people understand more about this. And domestic homicide is notoriously difficult to predict, but it seems that, and I'm going to learn more from Professor Mockton Smith on Thursday, it seems that for a specific subset of high-risk coercive control offenders, there might be a process that we can identify. There might be patterns we can recognize, and maybe there's something we can do to intervene. Maybe there's something that professionals can recognize in a particular couple and particular incident. Maybe there's something that the victim or the the offender can recognize themselves in, and maybe someone can do something about it. So I think I'm sure you agree, very, very important topic. So if you can join us live, let me just show you this again. It's this Thursday, 7 o'clock. It will be on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitter. If you're on the email list, I will have emailed you the direct link to that. If not, then hopefully you'll catch the link if you're on those social media platforms at the time. Right. So let's get started. Science snippet number 1 for this week. It's about burglary and geographic profiling. Now, it says the time of day that a burglar commits an offense can reveal patterns and characteristics of the offender, such as whether or not the offender has a 9-to-5 job. The day of the week can reveal patterns between the offender that burgles only on the weekend and the burglar that visits his grandmother on Wednesdays and burgles houses near her home each time he visits. Now, look at that in the context of opportunity, missed opportunities, taken opportunities. So it's not only significant to work out when they burglar offends, which days and which times, but also when they don't offend. Let's say you have this gets a little, patterns become easier to spot the more data points you have. So the more burglaries we can attribute to the same offender, so we've got a series and we can look at patterns, the more we can try to glean from that. But even single burglaries have to work to the same principle. The offender can only offend when they're able to offend. So if you have a series where the offender tends to attack or burgle, break into homes, let's say on a weekday at 7 o'clock in the evening. Let's say it's always around that time. So either he or she is not working at 7 o'clock in the evening during the week, or they are on their way to work. If they're not offending during the day, that could obviously be because people are at home, especially now with the lockdown. Many people are working from home, if not most. But also they might not be able to offend. So maybe they're working as well. If they are offending early in the mornings, is that because they are on their way to work, coming back from a night shift? Or is that just because they've got nothing else to do at that time? If they're offending only on weekends, does that mean because they're offending because they have time then, or are they on their way to work? So you need to look at more possibilities than as many possibilities as you can, and you need to go with those that are the most plausible and make sure you don't miss out any potential inferences. So the fact that they are offending 3 o'clock in the afternoon doesn't necessarily mean they don't work. Maybe their work involves them traveling around. Maybe they are a plumber. You know, they go from one location to the next, they spot a place, they come back later, or they offend because they were driving past and they noticed that there didn't seem to be anyone at home. There didn't seem to be any high-risk security system for them. So it matters a lot when they offend and when they don't offend. So you always need to look at those two opportunistic variables. sometimes people tend to only look at when they offend and they miss out when they don't offend. If there is a point in time or a whole time span when they don't offend, why is that? Is that because they had there was a social controlling factor? Maybe someone was staying with them at home. Maybe someone would have noticed something, so they had to stop offending temporarily. Were they in prison? Were they on holiday? Were there no opportunities? So you need to look at what's there, and you need to look at what's not there. So the link to the article is in the email that I sent to everyone who's on the email list. So you can actually look at the original article. Unfortunately, it depends on whether you have a subscription to that publisher or to that journal, on whether you can access the full article, but at least you can access the abstract. The abstract is the beginning part of the journal article that tells you what the study was about, what they did, how they did it, and a quick summary of the findings. Now, science snippet number 2 of this week is about interviewing styles. A comparison was made between a humanitarian interview style versus a more dominant interviewing style. Now, humanitarian interviewing style, it maybe sounds a little bit strange, and there's been lots of different names for it, and there's obviously lots of variations, but it's basically a conversation style approach of interviewing. It's an approach where you, as the interviewer, you don't put yourself in a hierarchically superior position to the person you're interviewing. You try to meet them at the same level. You build rapport. You treat them with respect. You treat them with compassion, and it's more of a conversation that you guide and you lead. You have a specific goal in mind. You have certain points you need to cover, and you have a certain purpose for the interview. But you do so in a positive, neutral, warm manner, rather than the dominant interview style, which is what we used to see in lots of films and TV shows. In many countries, that is a thing of the past now, but not in all countries. So, I'm asking the questions here, banging the hand on the table, tell me what you did, being accusing, being demanding, being slightly oppressive. That's illegal now in many countries, but not in all. So that's the dominant style, and they compared the dominant style to the humanitarian style. And the variable they were looking at was recall. So how does it affect you as the interviewee in terms of how many correct details you can recall when you're being interviewed in either the humanitarian style or the dominant style? And what they found was that the humanitarian style consistently produced superior recall with participants remembering more information, more central information, and more peripheral details. And again, the link to the original article that I've drawn this from is in the email if you're interested. Now, the third point is about crime linkage. Crime linkage is basically looking at, I mentioned this earlier with the burglaries. If you think that some crimes are linked to the same offender, in a way that's great, because the more cases you can link correctly to the right offender, the more pieces to the puzzle you have. Because it might well be that in this one case, somebody saw the offender, and they can say that he or she was particularly tall, perhaps. In another case that you think is the same offender, somebody noticed that they were driving a white car, and in another case, perhaps they have a footprint or a shoe print. So if you're quite certain you're looking at the same person and committing the series, you now know their rough height, maybe their gender, what the color car they drive, and you've got a shoe print, so that if you do catch a suspect, you can maybe compare their shoe prints to see if that brings you any further. So crime linkage can be very, very useful because it just weaves the net a bit closer. It gives you a lot more data points and information to work with, but it's very important to link the correct crimes, because if you think that this offense was committed by the same person, but actually they're a completely different offender, then obviously you're introducing a lot of error into all your analysis. So there are various factors that crimes can be linked on. One of the most popular one is probably MO, the modus operandi. I've got a video on what modus operandi is in the Police Science Doc gallery that feel free to watch anytime you want. But MO can change over time. MO evolves. So the way that somebody commits a crime evolves, it changes, they learn. Because if something works well, they may do it again, but they may also become more brave and take greater risks because it has worked in the past. If something doesn't work well, they may learn from that, and they may avoid doing that in the past, and they may actually take countermeasures. For example, they try to break into a house using whatever was lying around in the backyard. Turns out there wasn't anything useful lying around, so next time they bring something to the crime scene to help them break into the house. So that evolves. And there's also many other factors. For example, a particular victim that the offender might choose, how they respond, how easy they are to overwhelm, to gain control of. That is not really so much down to the offender. That is very much down to the victim as well. So the most successful and reliable factors to link different crimes to each other is actually something the offender can choose that they have control over, and that is the time and date of the offense. So, the time and date and the location, because the offender can choose that. They can think about it for weeks if they want, and that doesn't necessarily change. So the geography and the time and date when it happens and where it happens are the most reliable factors for crime linkage. And that is basically the snippet, because the time and date are much more under the offender's control and much less likely to be influenced by external factors. So the link to that is in there as well. And that was it. There was the 3 science snippets for this week. I hope you found them interesting. If you did, if you want to get more of those, if you want to have these links to the direct articles actually emailed to you, if you want to build up a library, if you want to have the transcripts for each videos, just join the Police Science Doctor email list. It's very simple. It's free. Go to www.policesciencedoctor.com. Go to the bottom of the page where you'll find a registration form, or wait a few seconds and it will actually pop up. Just put your details in there, confirm the email when you get it, and you'll get the password to the read page, and you will get goodies like this emailed to you every week, hopefully. And again, don't forget that on Thursday, I'm speaking to the very, very lovely Professor Jane Monckton-Smith at 7 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time. And it would be great if you could join us if you want to learn a little bit about domestic homicide and the escalation in coercive control. Until then, see you soon. Bye-bye.